Hello, hello, hello. I am live. Live and in action. This is the Lichtman Live post show. Hello, Kyle Fishman. Michelle Gonzalez is watching from Brownsville, Texas. Terry Green, you're the man. Great to be here on the Lichtman Live post show with everybody. Baby Precious, hello. Thank you, Ingbod, for your $2 donation. That's very kind of you. Hello, Pinfoy. How is everyone doing tonight? Hope you enjoyed Lichtman Live. But now it's time for the Lichtman Live post show. This is where the real fun happens, baby. Trace, what's up? Queen Warmouse, I can't speak tonight, man. Hello from Michigan, says Heather. Matthew Green is in the house. M. Pinchy is in the house. Cynthia, why can't I speak tonight? I can't speak tonight. Cynthia Gutierrez is in the Bay Area. So yeah, I think I made my thoughts on this whole January 6th stuff pretty clear. I cannot, at this point, especially after this, I cannot wrap my mind around, again, in the hearts of Americans, how this guy is still a viable candidate to be the next president. I just can't wrap my mind around it. The evidence is, to me, so clear. You know, you can argue these things like he said peacefully, et cetera, et cetera. But these are these one-off things. We have a mountain of evidence pointing in the other direction that Donald Trump intended to try to overturn a free and fair election. And yet he is still, you know, if you believe the polls, a viable candidate to win the White House. I just can't wrap my mind around that. I think pretty much at this point, almost every right-wing talking point can be disputed. And yet, the simplicity of the right-wing talking points seem to stick with Americans, which is frustrating to me. Ingbod, thanks for becoming a member. It shows the power of a cult. But we're talking about 60, 70 million Americans who could vote for Trump. That's not the cult. You know, the 30% of his Republican base that, you know, will never move. I get that is a cult that'll never move, but I can't wrap my mind around how there's 60 to 70 million Americans who are willing to vote for that guy. Philip H. says, don't underestimate the stupidity of the American people. I don't think the American people are stupid. I really don't. When I interact with most people on a day-to-day basis, most people seem reasonable to me. You know, obviously there are levels of education, but I still think people who might not be the highest educated people on paper are still smart people in their own way. I have not seen Melania's video on abortion. Do I plan on leaving America if Trump wins? No, I do not. I don't think brain drains are, not necessarily that I'm part of the brain drain, but I don't think, I mean, obviously, if my safety was at risk, that's something different, and a lot of people leave their countries due to safety risks. But if my safety is not directly at risk, you got to stay and try to, you know, if he is president, try to curb some of the crazy things he does. Are Trump fans in denial? I think mostly they're probably brainwashed. They just ingest so many right-wing talking points without engaging with someone from another perspective that they don't even know which way is up. Will nothing change your dad's mind about the keys? I'm not sure what you mean by that I'm not sure what you mean by that. Why would he, it's his system that he's developed that he thinks works. Why would he change his mind? I don't understand that question. Matthew Green says, some of the Trump supporters are like my dad. It's not a vote for Trump. It's a vote against socialism. Socialism is a boogeyman for conservatives. But who believes that Kamala Harris is a socialist? She's not even close to a socialist. And in fact, a lot of people, especially on the left, see her as more of a corporate Democrat. You know what I mean? So that's another thing. It's like, I think that's also part of a brainwashing technique, is try to convince people that Kamala is some sort of socialist. I don't know. Do I believe in my dad's keys because he said Kamala will win? No. I believed in my dad's keys, no matter who he says will win. You hear about Anna Kasparian leaving the left. Good riddance, I say. Also, how I did see that. I saw some headline about it. I don't watch her much, so I don't care that much, I guess. Will nothing change my mind about predicting a Harris win? The issue is that there is not enough time before the election for there to be a big enough monumental change. Maybe if America broke out into war, that things might change, but that's the chances of that happening are virtually zero, right? Cynthia says, people who call Harris a Marxist, socialist, or communist have no idea what the definition of those words are. They're just mindless insults to them. Right, but they seem to stick for whatever reason, even though the reality of the situation is, again, she's probably a pretty standard, maybe center-left corporate Dem. She's not anything close to those. I don't know. Captain M90 says, in Texas, the GOP is posed to change the election law so that only a candidate wins the majority of counties, not the popular vote, can be elected to statewide office. Is that true? I have not heard that, but that would be quite a change. Let me see if I can find anything on that. I haven't heard that. Do other people know about that? Sorry, I'm trying to find the... there we go. Let's see. Texas voting law. Federal judge strikes down key provision of Texas's omnibus voter suppression law. Is this it? The federal judge struck down a key provision of Texas 2021 omnibus voter suppression legislation. Senate Bill 1 after finding criminally restricted how paid camp. No, this isn't it. I don't see any information on that, so you'd have to provide it. I'm not sure. There is a huge following for Trump. I can only see a Trump win. There was a huge following for Trump in 2020. He lost. I mean, that doesn't mean, just because you have a big following doesn't mean you're going to win necessarily. Now that we only have a month to go, do you think Tim Walz was the right choice versus Josh Shapiro? Again, I don't really think it matters. I mean, if Josh Shapiro wasn't the governor of Pennsylvania, I would say it definitely doesn't matter. If Shapiro would have handed her Pennsylvania, maybe it does matter, but we'll never know, so it's hard to answer that question. Master says, I can't believe how far Trump has gotten his supporters to ride along with him. He is a sore loser. That's all. We don't need to change voting rules. One thing I think about these, again, his base is I don't think they really care about democracy that much, to be honest with you. I'm talking about his, core base who will never leave him, who, really wasn't involved in politics before him. I don't think they care about democracy that much. I think that's the key thing, too. What are the chances of Kamala winning North Carolina? I would say 58% chance she wins. Dr. SSM, I had to evacuate East Florida after the hurricanes. I missed 2 of your live streams, but glad to be back. Glad you're back, Dr. Ash. Will the Lichtman men be live on election night? That is the plan. MAGA influencers like Nug Boys and MAGA podcasters like Charlie Kirk be like, we must justify Trump no matter what he does. Of course. And I mean, it's not just influencers and podcasters. It's the entire Republican Party at this point. I mean, he's kidnapped the entire Republican Party, and they will justify him pretty much no matter what, which is scary, obviously. Shapiro wanted to stay governor. He's also likely will run in the future. Okay, that's a good point too. Maybe that's why he wasn't the VP point. Will you ever forgive your estranged MAGA family? Well, one, I don't have any estranged MAGA family. I do have some MAGA people in my family. I already forgive them. I don't hold a grudge against them personally. I mean, it's kind of like, I was listening to this podcast about Ashley Babbitt, the woman who was shot and killed on January 6th, and her mother. And I felt really sad listening to that podcast and listening to how, her mother's grief about her daughter being killed, and now her mother is, a pretty far right winger on the Trump side, and it just infuriates me and it makes me sad because it's like, this is Trump's fault. If Trump hadn't told her for months leading up to the election, during the election, after the election, that the election was stolen, she wouldn't have broken into the Capitol and she'd probably be alive today. So I'm not a big fan of blaming individuals. I think, the people at the top, when you have that much responsibility, you have to take a lot of the blame. And I think Trump is to blame. Obviously, it was her individual decision to walk into the Capitol, not walk, but break into the Capitol that day. I understand that. But without Trump's incitement in her mind, again, this is a war of her mind that Trump has inflamed, she'd still be alive today. H-Fan says, to be clear, if Israel strikes Iran oil facilities, it's too late for that to cause a recession here before the election. Yeah, I believe that's what my dad said. Cynthia says, 100% Babbitt's death is due to Trump's rhetoric. I feel that too. And it infuriates me that, again, like right-wingers like Tucker Carlson they try to spin January 6th by like blaming the FBI or saying that there were agents in the crowd, which, like, even if that is true, still the initial incitement and the war of the mind was started by Donald Trump, who said that the election was stolen. They wouldn't have been there that day if Donald Trump didn't say that the election was stolen. So even if that was true, which maybe there were some FBI people there, does that mean that the FBI incited hundreds of people that day to break in? No, of course not. But even if there was FBI people there or informants there, it doesn't matter because Trump is the catalyst. Trump is the reason why all these people showed up that day and thought that the election was stolen. Not the FBI, not Trump. Even if you take all these conspiracy theories and you give them some validity, they still don't hold water. People forget how close the violent mob was to Pence and the Congress. Yeah, I think the right wing has done a really good job of whitewashing January 6th. I think hopefully this report, especially now that we know that Trump said so what in terms of, they were moving Pence because he was in danger. I mean, hopefully that re-inflames some people's anger about that day, but I kind of doubt it. I don't know. Are people embarrassed to admit to supporting Trump? I don't think so. I mean, think about the idea of the MAGA hat, the Trump flag. I mean, you see that all the time. I mean, I guess what you're saying maybe is like, that's his 30% base. How do you get then to 60 to 70 million Americans voting for him? I don't know. I feel like most people I talk to, they're like, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump. I don't see a lot of shame in it usually. Do I have conservative friends? Yeah, of course. Hello from Argentina. I lost it. Francisco Morone. My roommate is from Argentina. And like the thing is, when I talk to a lot of my conservative friends, I hear them saying a lot of these things like, Democrats do the same thing. Think about Gore in 2000. Think about Hillary Clinton in 2016. They say similar stuff to this Vance talking point. Democrats are trying to censor people, et cetera, et cetera. But for whatever reason, nobody combats that with, guys, that is a false equivalency. These things are not equivalent to what Trump has done. Not even close, actually. Sharon says, I think the report will move very few people. Some will move, like your dad said, but a hearing will be more effective. I mean, I agree. I don't think a lot of people are going to be moved. I mean, I said this last week on my dad's live. The issue is, he kept going on and on about January 6th, and I was like, we've gone on and on about this stuff forever, and it hasn't moved the needle, it doesn't seem. Well, maybe it's moved the needle a little bit, because like I said, I still don't think Trump's going to win. I still do think that January 6th and his attempt to overthrow the government or overthrow a free and fair election was damaging enough that he can't win a general election in America. But it still is crazy that he is still a viable candidate to win a general election in America. I guess that's what upsets me. James says, been hearing a lot of people saying that there are fewer Trump signs this cycle, me included. Does that equate to lower support for Trump? That's impossible to ever tell. You can never confirm or deny that for real, Nahiro Chan says, it's a weird argument to be just like, yeah, well, they do it too, so like that would justify it all. No, of course. I mean, that doesn't make what Trump, right, they're not actually defending any of Trump's actions. But they're not even correct. There is not an equivalent between the two. Kyle Fishman says, Sam, your dad used to make his prediction much earlier in the cycle, but in the past 3 cycles, he waits until September to make his call. Why can't he make earlier predictions? I think because our political environment has just gotten more chaotic and more unpredictable in recent years. That would be my guess. I think he said that before. Master says he really isn't popular like the polls say. Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. But again, he is still the candidate, one of 2 candidates left to be our president. To me, he shouldn't even be in that arena at all. You know what I mean? He shouldn't even be the final 2 standing based on his actions and based on his attempts to overthrow a free and fair election. Anita says, awesome content. I'm learning so much. Is there a way you can share the links to the articles you read previously and talked about on the show tonight? Articles about tech companies on both sides. I mean, I can probably find this in 2 seconds. There have been also studies, like do tech companies, censor more conservatives? Let's see. This is a Pew Research that says most Americans think social media sites censor political viewpoints. 90% of Republicans say it's likely that social media sites censor political views. This is more about what people think. I don't know. I swear. Congress.gov. I don't know. I don't want to. Chuck Grassley and the Heritage Foundation. Right. There's not like a whole lot of. What does Axios say? Study calls conservative claims of text censorship a form of disinformation. There you go. Researchers at New York University have released a new study that dispels the allegations made repeatedly by conservative lawmakers and members of Congress that big tech companies intentionally censor their viewpoints. So right here, right? And I mean, you can access this article on your own. I'm not going to read it on the live, but there's an Axios article right there about a study that just says that's just not even true. I'm trying to remember where I saw the articles about Republicans also asking for stuff to be taken down, or the Trump. I think there was even stuff about Trump's campaign asking stuff to be taken down. Campaign asking tech companies to take content down. Here's one from Rolling Stone. Twitter kept entire database of Republican requests to censor posts. Elon Musk's Twitter files focus on Democrats, but former administration officials and Twitter employees say Trump's team and other Republicans routinely demanded posts to be taken down. See? Like, why doesn't anybody say this shit? Why didn't Tim Walz say this on the debate stage? You know what I mean? I don't get it. Do I think Trump will debate Harris again? No shot. No shot. HFan says, are you saying that even though Trump is predicted to lose, you find it offensive that he's still even being considered a serious candidate? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Nahiro Chan says, whenever conservatives complain about being censored, it's always just because they get banned for being racist, sexist, homophobic, which is against the platform rules. Right, that's another big discrepancy that right-wingers do, is we're talking about censorship in the First Amendment, which is based off of our courts and our government and our judicial system and our penal system, right? And then we're talking about private companies and their internal terms of service, right? So why doesn't anybody say that either? That you're conflating these two things. They're not the same thing. It's just so frustrating. Cole Pukrabek says, if Trump loses, could you see Charlie Kirk being the next face of MAGA? He's old enough to be president in 2029. He would be a scary man running for president. No, I don't think Charlie Kirk has a serious political career. He's too much of a right-wing media blabbermouth. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe if he ran in some local congressional race in a super red district, he could win, but I don't see him having the legs to win a Senate race or anything more than that, governor race. I mean, unless it's like, I don't know. I don't think guys like him can sustain themselves on a broader level. Now, I've said this in like my past streams. I'm not sure what's going to happen after Trump, but I think maybe we saw a little bit what might happen after Trump with J.D. Vance. You're going to have MAGA-ism, but just a little bit more nicely packed, like in a J.D. Vance form. Someone who still holds the new age MAGA ideology, but looks more like your classic Republican, polite, family guy, slick, smooth, all these stupid terms everybody uses. But I think like that might be the future of the Republican Party, is a guy like J.D. Vance. Now, I don't necessarily think that J.D. Vance, again, is charismatic enough or is likable enough to actually win on the national stage, but I think someone like a J.D. Vance could come up and take hold. Someone who's a little bit more likable, a little bit more charismatic, but a little bit more nicely packed like J.D. Vance. Comic Fan says, to me, the 34 felonies and this jug chucking thing really affects Trump's. Do you think he might go to jail before the election? No, I don't think he's going to jail before the election. I definitely think the 34 felonies has affected Trump. And again, I still think that he's not going to win because of things like this. But I don't understand, again, like I've said 1,000 times, why he's still one of two, with all this behind him. Trump's sons may try to run for office. They might. But again, I don't think they're likable enough to win. They're not Trump enough, and they're not their dad. They're not Trump enough. They're sort of like actors who try to act like their dad. You know what I mean? Like Donald Trump Jr. seems so much like an actor to me, like a guy who was hired to play Donald Trump's son, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't think they're likable enough to win. I mean, this is the thing. Is like Trump is very likable to a large section of this country. I don't think guys like his sons. I mean, his son Eric is a dud, and John Jr. is not likable. He's an asshole, and he's annoying. You know what I mean? Is Kamala down 4 keys? I can't remember what your dad said. Let's see. This is what the keys are at right now. It's this, I believe. Let's see. Oh fuck, now I can't remember. Here, I'll go to YouTube. We'll go to this video.
I'm back with another episode of Just Because.
No free ads on my channel, baby. All right, this is where the keys stood, I believe. Right? 9-4. His yeah, yes, everybody's saying yes. This is where the keys stand. In this New York Times, he didn't call this. He skipped these two keys, but so in his final New York Times one, it was 8-3-2. But this was like his basic, his full call. It's 9-4. What about Ivanka running for president? Ivanka is actually the most viable of any of his children, I believe, because again, she fits more of that JD Vance mold where she could, but I don't know if she would come out publicly and be as MAGA as her dad. That's the issue. But if she did come out and she upheld the MAGA ideology, but in this nicely packed, polite, more traditional Republican format, she could be successful. But for whatever reason, I just can't picture her being as hardline MAGA as like a JD Vance would be. California has so many Republican voters. Yeah, California has more Republican voters than probably most deep red states because it's just such a big fucking state. Antonio says Trump is dragging political baggage everywhere he goes. That baggage is weighing him down. I mean, I do agree with that. Like, I think in the end of the day, Republicans will regret electorally riding with Trump no matter what. I mean, they lost 2020. According to my dad, they're going to lose again. I mean, that's 2 elections in a row we've ridden with this guy, and it's not worked out in your favor. You know what I mean? That's a big L. That's a lot of wasted time and energy on a guy who was 1 and 2 in elections, Ivanka started her family, so I think she'd run for president for the sake of her kids. Maybe. I don't know what that means exactly, though. It's kind of general. Pyrolan says, agree, Ivanka is viable, also legit intelligent. She basically took money and ran. Sharon says, I don't think she's interested, but who knows? Yeah, we won't know until we know, right? Of course. Martin C. says, do you think it would have been better if Liz Cheney, and all of the Republicans that supported Harris would have gone third party and tried to split the red vote? According to my dad's keys, no, because the third party affects the incumbent party, so no. Marguerite says, Sam, about research to be more informed, like one of your audience commented, I am an unapologetically politically ignoramus here to be enlightened, a little love with the truth, please. I don't know what that, ignoramus. I am an unapologetically politically ignoramus. I don't know what that means. Should the mayor of NYC resign? Yeah, definitely. You think Renee thinks Jared Kushner will win? Nah, that guy is a dud. That guy is a dud. I mean, again, what are we talking about here? Like, could Jared Kushner maybe win? I mean, he would never run for a congressional. A guy like Jared Kushner would never run for a congressional seat. But could he win maybe a redder congressional seat in New York? Yeah, of course. Do I think he could be the next senator or governor of New York? I don't think so. He's too much of a dud. Ivanka is richer than her dad by a lot. What are you basing that off of? Where was that comment? I'm gonna look this up. Politically ignoramus. What does ignoramus mean? An utterly ignorant person. So you're politically ignorant is what you're saying. Okay, I got you. Hey Dudley, thank you for your donation. Will Jill Stein, Cornel West, and RFK Jr. spoil and hurt Harris and tip the elections to Trump or no? Dudley, you asked this question on my dad's stream. The reason I didn't answer this is because we've answered this 1,000 times. The answer is no. Jill Stein, Cornel West, it has to be an individual candidate who in the third party polls 10% or above. RFK Jr. isn't even running anymore, so I don't quite understand your question. The answer is no. H-Fan says, to be honest, you and your dad are some of the few political public figures I feel sane listening to. My therapist recently recommended that I limit how much news I'm getting off of social media. I think your therapist is right. I think being informed is important, but there's a balance to it, right? If you're ingesting too much political content and too much news, it is unhealthy, I believe. Sam, do you think MAGA folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene will push for secession if Harris wins? No. No. I think I've said this before. I mean, if she wins by big enough, I think they're going to go quietly into the night. If it's close, it could be a shitstorm. RFK Jr. will be in the ballot in some states. But guys, just look up the definition of the key. It's a very simple key. You don't need to keep asking the same questions about third parties over and over and over again. Nahiro says, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene will push for secession. She already has. What do you mean she already has? Like, she's pushed that the South should secede from the Union. Since RFK is on other states' ballot, will that weaken the Republican vote? Not according to the keys. Again, according to the keys, third party affect the incumbent party in power. Jimmy Manning says, Sam, I'm beginning to think a lot of the media purposely suppresses your dad's prediction because they will have nothing to talk about. That is not good for the ratings. Yeah, I've talked about this. I mean, I don't know if they purposely suppress it, but maybe they just... I mean, look, he's gotten tons of media attention. I mean, let's not get it wrong. My dad's gotten tons of media attention. But yes, his prediction is antithetical to the way their entire media structure is made, right? The keys are boring. Every key is very hard to move. They move over long periods of time. The media, YouTube streamers, etc., Twitch streamers, they cover election like a horse race on a day-to-day basis. That's why I don't like the keys. Sharon Novak says third party is not significant enough to affect that key. Right, that's the bottom line. Is there's no significant third party candidate that has enough power or influence to affect the election, basically. So stop worrying about the third party. Third party is not an issue. Your dad has been very nascent nasty recently on media. He should be more kind. I agree that sometimes he loses his temper sometimes on the media, and I remind him of that. I'm like, dude, you gotta just chill out a little bit. When you lose your cool, you lose people. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I think he's starting to get a little frustrated with people saying, just constantly, without like proper research, criticizing the keys, right? Obviously, criticism is perfectly fair, but I think a lot of people who criticize the keys are doing it for clicks because it's very hot right now, and you know, the issue with a lot of I think YouTubers and streamers especially is they don't do a lot of research. Do you think your dad's 13 keys could someday make an effective campaign strategy for a candidate to get elected president? I'm 34 and considering a White House run myself in the 2040s. Wow. I don't think it's I don't think the keys necessarily can help with the campaign strategy. I mean, they can and they can't. But again, it's more about governing well than anything else. So if you govern well, you're setting yourself up for a victory. Or if, you're running for president, you got to hope that the previous administration governed well, or else you're kind of fucked. Ross says, I think that some are worried that Stein and West could somehow spoil the election like Ralph Nader supposedly spoiled the election for Gore in 2000. What do you think? I don't think they have enough people behind them to spoil the election. Will Strumeyer says, Allan lost his cool on the Hill when one of the anchors said he predicted Biden would win in 20. You're right. So like he's getting frustrated with so many people misrepresenting himself and his predictions in the keys. Honestly, I thought that one with the Hill was fine because that guy was a little shit and like part of this like propaganda class of like new political analysts. So like fuck that guy. Maybe I shouldn't say fuck that guy because that's maybe too harsh and I don't know him that well, but I feel like he was acting in bad faith or he was completely ignorant. So I think it was valid for my dad to get upset. Philip H says, I haven't seen him be nasty. It doesn't happen often. Most of the time, he's very kind and funny and personable. Every once in a while, he does slip up and get angry. The Hill is a right-leaning outfit. The Hill is confusing as hell to me. I feel like, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, they were right-leaning. Then their online content kind of had like a far left spin on it, and I don't know. I don't understand the Hill past its just basic like op-eds and standard news coverage. They're confusing to me. Didn't both of you basically say that a lot would have to go wrong to predict a Biden loss, but never really predicted that he'd win? Of course. And my dad was like crystal clear about that. Like over and over and over again, every interview he did, he said, I'm not making a final prediction, but a lot would have to go wrong for Biden to lose. I mean, he said that over and over and over again. So that's why I felt like him getting mad at this guy was justified, because if he watched any of those clips, he either wasn't listening again and was totally ignorant and just like, I don't know, read a headline and went with his own interpretation of that headline, or he was purposely engaging in a bad faith argument, which is annoying. Morgan Hanover says, didn't all these people, even Nate Silver, make good faith claims? I don't. What lies did they say? I'm just saying I don't know about Nate Silver. Thank you, Jimmy Mannix, for your donation. I don't know what you're talking about, Morgan Hanover, to be honest with you. Ross says, I know that some people feel like calling out Trump and MAGA as a threat to democracy hasn't been working. Trump, MAGA, and Republicans might be seen as playing into the Democrats' frame. I don't quite understand that. Trump MAGA might be seen as playing into the Democrats. I don't quite understand that. Marguerite says, I'm so glad your dad is real, not slick. I mean, he's been taking the criticism for decades. I would have left long ago. He's so committed to staying. Sometimes the flack hits. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I respect him for what he does. And yeah, he's been taking flack for decades, and it's really ramping up now. And I agree with this whole, I probably even said it afterwards, after the debate. I was probably even said he was slick and smooth, J.D. Vance. But I take that back. He was slimy and snake-like. He wasn't slick and smooth. I think if you go back and just, again, what my dad was saying on our stream earlier, if you see what that guy was saying, it was mostly bullshit. I mean, maybe the gist of what he was saying generally was good. Like, I want to help Americans. But of course, I mean, like every political candidate says that, right? J.D. Vance was a sleazy used car salesman. I agree with that. I agree with that. And guys like that seem like they're good guys on the surface, but when you go deeper, I'm not necessarily saying that J.D. Vance is a bad guy, but he has twisted himself to gain and expand his power into any direction, any form it takes, which in and of itself is dirty and sleazy in my mind. And of course, he's aligned himself with Trump, which is the epitome of dirty and sleazy, right? Yeah, I don't like JD Vance at all. He's like the epitome of what's wrong with politics. Like a man who came up pretty humbly, then decided to, go into, venture capitalism and go for the big money, and then pivot that into a political career where he changes his entire ideology for power and status. I mean, he is literally like the example of what is wrong with politics. And it's frustrating too, because he could have, I feel like, been like a pretty amazing American figure. Again, the way he came up in life, but he's used it for all the wrong reasons. Philip H says, JD Vance is a bad guy. Don't make excuses for him. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know. Yeah, it is hard to say, because like I said, like, if he is conscious of the fact that what he is doing is wrong and doing it anyways, then he is a bad guy. I kind of agree with that. I don't know. But then again, like, I feel like deep down, he's probably not a bad person. He's probably a good father, a good husband. You know what I mean? Why he's chosen this path in politics, I can't wrap my mind around. What do I think about Ramaswamy? I don't like Ramaswamy at all. He's a rich dude who's forced himself into our political culture and spews a bunch of nonsense. I mean, he's considered this great intellectual by the right, but most of his talking points are utter gobbledygook. And it's just astonishing to me. Again, it's kind of with the same, like, why doesn't anybody talk back about, to Trump or Vance about these things they spew? I just feel like Ramaswamy just goes around spewing nonsense and nobody really talks back to him. Obviously, he goes on debates with Democrats and left-wingers and they talk back, but just another guy that I think is so slimy and snaky, Another guy who, son of immigrants, went to Yale, kind of a similar story to J.D. Vance, was like, criticized a lot of right-wingers early on in his career, and then made this 180, it seemed, for the reasons of power and privilege, which is, yeah, I really don't like that guy at all. And I really hope, I do really think he has no real future in politics, because of how slimy he is, and because he's positioned himself in a party that, I mean, Ann Coulter said it herself. She wouldn't vote for him because he was a brown Indian man. You think that guy's going to win the Ohio governorship? No shot. Become a senator from Ohio? I don't think so. I don't even think he can win a primary in a Republican election, to be honest with you. Because he's going to have to split the MAGA votes with some other white MAGA guy, right? They'll probably beat him out. And then on a general election, he's too MAGA. So he can't, he can't win. I mean, maybe in a redder state like Ohio he could, but I don't know. Louisiana had an Indian governor. Yeah, that's true. I guess I more think he doesn't have a political future because he's too slimy. And I think when he really gets exposed, not in just a Republican primary where he can just jump in and say whatever he wants, when he gets exposed as a phony, as some rich guy, billionaire inserting himself into politics, I think he'll be exposed and he won't have a real future. I think if Trump wins, he will probably get a big, powerful position within the government. I think Trump will appoint him to that for sure. Ramaswamy is also not Christian. That's a deal breaker for Republicans. That's a good point too. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Bobby Jindal. I don't know if he's Christian. Let me see. Bobby Jindal was the governor of Louisiana, right? How do you spell it? Bobby Jindal? Is that how you spell it? Yeah. Was he Christian? Probably not, right? But Bobby Jindal was also a Democrat, right? Wasn't he a Democrat? Oh no, he's a Republican. All right, maybe Bobby Jindal is a slight example of how Vivek could win. But again, Vivek is so slimy. I think Bobby Jindal was a pretty good guy. He was moderate, right? For the most part. I really think on a bigger scale, when he's going against, a Democrat in a general election, I think he will be exposed. Lumi says Jindal was GOP, but he was sane and he wouldn't be in today's GOP. That's kind of my point too, right? If Ramaswamy was more moderate Republican, he could have a chance maybe. But I don't think, again, I think him being super MAGA, he would probably get some other MAGA candidate in a primary in a red state. You know what I mean? And then on a general level, I think a Democrat would expose him for who he really was. How much did Vance win his Senate seat by? Was that 2022 Senate election? Oh, I gotta do Ohio. I mean, Vance did win pretty solidly, actually. I was gonna say, Vance squeaked it out. So, like, if Vance can only squeak it out, I doubt Ramaswamy can. But no, he won pretty decisively. Still, all my points hold about Ramaswamy. When was the last time I got drunk? I haven't had a drink since 2015. Tim Ryan was an awful candidate, like straight out of Veep. Was he? I kind of remember people really pushing for him. I mean, maybe they're just pushing for him because they really wanted to beat Vance. I don't remember that, but maybe that's true. Am I a fan of Dinesh D'Souza as a filmmaker? You mean like the guy who did like 13 Mules or whatever? No, he's a propagandist. Joe Brooks says, Sam, I think our surprise at the number of Trump voters is due to our being white males and not experiencing firsthand just how many bigoted, racist, and sexist people we have in this country. I don't believe that's where Trump... I don't know. I don't believe that's where Trump's support really lies. I mean, if you look at, like, there was a lot of talk after 2016 that a lot of people who voted for Obama then voted for Trump, especially in swing states like Wisconsin, Michigan. Like, you can't tell me that a racist is going to vote for a black president. You know what I mean? I don't think that's the number one reason why Trump is elected. I don't. Ross says Vance underperformed in his Senate race. Tim Ryan put up one hell of a competition. Carville even said that Ryan ran one of the best campaigns ever. He just didn't have enough resources to win. Okay. There you go. Cole says, I think quite a few young men like 18 to 29 range support and want to vote for Trump because Trump may give off cool vibes for them. Who really knows? I don't think Trump gives off cool vibes. I think maybe young men like that want to vote for Trump because they think it's like that Kamala, if you vote for Kamala, you're a beta, you don't believe in. It's not that Trump is cool. I think it's more like they don't want to vote for Democrats because of some weird perception of them being like, if you vote for them, you're a beta or something like that. I don't know. There is a fraction of the Trump voters that are racist. Yes, I agree. There is a small percentage of Trump voters who do vote for him based off of purely racist ideology. I do agree with that. But I don't think there are 70 million Americans who are voting based off of that. Chad says state elections are different than national. Jindal was a homeboy, well liked and conservative, but well known. He couldn't have won a national election. Each state has its own culture. That's a good point too. Vincent says, Sam, I'm a beta. Who should I vote for? Whoever you want. Ross says, so I think most people don't believe Trump and his followers that Dems are the real threat to democracy. I think a majority of people see Trump and MAGA just copying Dems' talking point on that. Um, I think a lot of them do really think that, dude. I think a lot of them do really think that. Evangelicals are his largest group from my observation. That's a good point, evangelicals. And the thing is, like, even though obviously he's a scumbag and isn't a Christian and doesn't hold Christian values, he will push through policy that evangelicals like. For example, abortion. Did your dad ever talk at length about the Heritage Foundation as links to the far right American Catholic Church? I don't believe he's ever talked about the Heritage Foundation. Nola Aikido says, I'm deeply grateful to you and your dad for the work you're doing. I'm also obsessively following the election, hoping that the prediction is correct. Don't be too obsessive about it. Thank you for the kind words. Don't be too obsessive about it. There's nothing you can do except for vote, really. Well, there's plenty. I mean, there's lots you can do, but following the media is not gonna. You can do a lot. You can help people register to vote. You can exact. You can do a lot, but following the media circus is not going to help anybody. Not you, not the election. Single issue voters and anti-LGBTQIA. That's a huge and evangelical platform. Trump caters to evangelicals. Why Heritage Foundation has worked so closely with them. I mean, I agree that's all true. But there's not 70 million evangelicals in America. Rich says following this daily makes you insane. Yeah, I wouldn't follow it daily. Is it possible Trump won because Clinton was not a likable candidate? It seemed that folks wanted Bernie instead and did not show up to vote. Just look at the keys. They'll tell you why she didn't win. Christina Cho says, totally random, but I enjoy the Lichtman shows as a safe place for us to talk. Well, I'm glad to hear that. If Trump wins, at least we'll live in interesting times. Not that interesting. I don't know. You don't want to risk it. You don't want to risk it just to say you lived in interesting times. Sharon says, I'm not up for the adventure. Yeah, I'm not either, really, for the adventure of Trump winning again. We're already in pretty interesting times. Too much for me. Yeah, we're already in pretty interesting times. Yeah, it's enough for me, too. Is it possible that people are so sane-washed, I guess brainwashed, that they will vote for Trump just based off vibes, not really care about the October surprise Trump got yesterday? I think it's too yeah, I don't think anybody's voting on. I don't know. I don't think anybody's voting on him based off of vibes alone, but people are voting on him based off of like their own social construction of themselves, if that makes sense. When I'm gonna play some more Resident Evil, hopefully soon. I think seeing the first black female president is plenty interesting. That's a good point, Nahiro. How do you and your dad take breaks from the political news stuff? I can't listen to it 24. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't turn it on. I don't really watch mainstream news anymore at all. And, if I go on YouTube, if I'm just like, if I see political stuff on my feed, I'll just be like, not today. I just don't click on it. You know what I mean? Not today. Tashdid Khan says, Trump brings people together on the convergence of hate. The anti-LGBT movement is gaining traction among communities in America due to the fact that they feel partyless to some degree. I agree that is a big part of his pull is hate and people who are LGBT, anti-immigrant, stuff like that. But again, how do you explain the fact that, a lot of people who voted for Obama then voted for Trump? A lot of Democrats voted for Trump. How do you explain all that? And I don't know. I know Trump supporters, and I don't think they're racist or sexist necessarily. Let's see. Obama voters who voted for Trump. Here we go. There's a whole Wikipedia page about it. In the United States, Obama, Trump voters, sometimes referred to as Trump Democrats or Obama Republicans, are people who voted for the Democrat. Blah, 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 blah. Data shows that in 2016, these voters comprised roughly 13% of Trump voters. That's a shit ton of people. 13%. Like, look at this shift. You know what I mean? So this is 2012. This is 2016, right? I mean, look at this. Look at this shift, man. That's not just racist people. That's not just racist people. I think in 2016, a lot of that support was just people wanting some sort of change, and he represented change. No matter if you agree with the change or not, he represented change. Wait, so how many people is that? If All right, so how many people voted for Trump in how many people voted for Trump in 2016? All right, so he got 62 million votes, right? Um, let's do calculator. So 62 million. Oh, they don't do commas here. Right, that's 62,000. That's 60. Okay. Is that 62 million? One, two, three. I hate calculators that don't give you commas. Yeah, 62 million. What was it? 13%. So that's times 0.13. 1, 2, 3. That's 8 million people who voted for Obama and then Trump. I mean, that swings the election easily, right? That's a shit ton of people. I mean, especially in these, these swing states alone, that those 8 million votes would have swung the election, no question, right? So it's like, did he win because of racism or something else? I think something else. That's my opinion. All right, I think with that, I will sign off. I'm getting a little tired, a little sleepy, a little hungry. Thank you all for tuning in. Keep sane, keep chill. Don't drive yourself off the ledge. Everything will be all right. Every little thing is gonna be all right.